Hello. We are in Luke chapter 8, verses 26 to 39. If you find yourself being tempted to skip past the part where we read through the passage, I beg you, please don't do that. This is such a rich and good passage. So let's read it together. Luke 8, verses 26 to 39. Then they sailed to the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. When Jesus had stepped out on land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he had not lived in a house, but among the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. Now a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him to let them enter there. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. When the herdsmen saw what had happened, they fled and told it in the city and in the country. Then people went out to see what had happened, and they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. And those who had seen it told them how the demon-possessed man had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." And he went away, proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. What to first comment on when discussing such a rich and complex narrative? We could talk about demons. What are they? Where do they come from? How does one recognize them? We could talk about the fact that this is the first and only Gentile city that Jesus visits during his earthly ministry. He's interacted, of course, with other Gentiles, but this is the first time that he goes into their territory. He comes, he saves a person, and he leaves. We could talk about the pigs who become demon-possessed, run off a cliff and drown in a lake. We have here an image of deep religious and ritualistic meaning for the ancient world. We could talk about the authority that Jesus has over the demons. Observe that they recognize the identity of Christ and his authority, and thus they beg him for mercy. They can only act with his permission. And remember how we read about Christ's authority over nature in the last passage we read, when he commanded the winds and the waves to be quiet. And in the passage immediately following this one, we read about Jesus' authority, as we do elsewhere in the Gospel of Luke, over sicknesses and even death. We could talk about many things in relation to this passage, but let's try and focus on just one. I'd like for us to think about the people of Gerasa, the Gerasenes. We know next to nothing about these people. What we do know is that there's a man among them who's been the victim of demons for many years. Obviously, his situation has led him to uncontrollable and possibly violent behavior, to the point where the Gerasenes have tried various methods to control him, but without success. He would break the chains and the bonds every time, and would then be driven by the demon into the desert, away from everyone and everything, alone with the demons. At the time Jesus met this man, he was absolutely despicable, naked, insane, and living among the tombs, sleeping next to dead people. He'd hit rock bottom. He was a man whose need could not be more obvious. You look at him and you wonder, why is this person alive? What is the purpose of his life? He's basically a hotel for demons. That's the meaning of his existence, to extend hospitality to demons. And thank goodness these demons drive him into isolation, because while the guy lived among people, they couldn't handle him. They tried to control him, to chain him up, but he remained problematic. At least now he lives far away from everyone so that no one has to deal with him. Have you ever met this kind of person? Not necessarily possessed, but just a person who seems so distant from what you consider to be normal and healthy, that it's obvious for this person to return to your reality, a miracle has to take place. Have you ever met a person who's so psychologically imprisoned that you wonder what the point is of his existence? How does he live? What is he thinking? Is he dreaming of a better future? Does he want out of this situation? Or does he just exist and that's it? I've met these kinds of people, and I can tell you that the easiest thing in the world to do is just to accept that there's no hope for them and to leave them to suffer alone. When I look at them, I see an abyss, an emptiness, a non-existence. It's like looking at a dead body. But it's worse than looking at a dead body, because at least a dead body doesn't suffer. Think of the image, naked, insane, living among the dead. You can see these kinds of figures in Omonia. People screaming at nothing, cursing incessantly under their breath, no awareness of their surroundings. Drug addicts sitting on sidewalks, indifferent to the fact that they're sitting in the spit of hundreds of passersby as long as they have a place to get their fix. You look at these people and you wonder, why are they living? They're gone. It's over for them. There's no hope for life in these people. That's what we think, and it's probably what the Gerasenes thought of the possessed man. And you know, in a sense, they were right to think that. They were right to think that the only hope that this person will live some kind of life is if God intervenes, as if something supernatural happens, a miracle. That's the only way that this man can have a genuine life. Well, Jesus Christ comes and performs that miracle. It's a miracle by our standards, not by his. For Christ, it is the most natural thing in the world, using the authority that's been given to him by the Father God to command and exorcise evil spirits and to liberate a human being. Because that's who Christ is. He has all authority and all compassion. And so he frees this man with the power of his word. But something happens during this time which deeply unsettles the rest of the citizens. The pigs, which become the new bearers of the demons, belong to certain people. It's from these pigs that they'll earn their money to live. And now all of a sudden they become possessed, fall off a cliff, and drown in a lake. And these herdsmen are probably thinking, there goes all our financial security. They're probably wondering, who is this guy who showed up out of nowhere on a boat and within 10 minutes completely destroyed our livelihood? So they run to the city and into the country and they tell everyone what Jesus did. But what exactly did they say? Did they say, we just saw a man who was able to save the person who none of us were able to help? Praise God. Or did they say, we just saw a guy who sent a myriad of demons into our pigs, and then our pigs drowned? And how are we going to make a living in this town with a guy like that? We don't know exactly what they said, but they obviously got people interested. And so a huge crowd came to see what's going on. And what do they see? They see the town's demoniac totally changed, sitting at the feet of the Lord. He's dressed, calm, peaceful. Have you ever seen a changed person? A person who you used to look at and said, what's the point of his existence? But now you look at and you say, I get it. I get it. They came so close to death, they experienced it so intensely that now they know what it means to really live. And you see a peace in their eyes that you don't see in the average person. The Gerasenes see him, and they're afraid. One would expect that they'd have a celebration, a party for this person who, after years of torture, has been saved. But the citizens of Gesera look at him, and they're afraid. Why? The passage doesn't tell us why they're afraid, but let's think of some possible reasons together. Could it be that these people think that Jesus has a demonic power himself, and that's why he can exercise authority over Legion? In a few chapters, Luke will narrate the response of some other people to a different exorcism that Jesus performed, and he tells us that this is precisely what they thought. That is, that Jesus could exorcise demons precisely because he himself had a greater demonic power. So perhaps the Gerasenes fear something similar. What other possibilities might there be? Why should these people be afraid? Maybe they're afraid in the same way Jesus' disciples were afraid after he told the winds and the waves to be quiet. They were seized with fear in the same sense. Maybe, in other words, they're afraid because they haven't seen such great authority belonging to a person before. Maybe. But probably not, because the fear of the disciples led them to a deeper trust in the person of Christ, whereas the fear of the Gerasenes caused them to ask Jesus to leave them. They clearly communicated that they didn't want that kind of authority among them. But why? I mean, they see that it's an authority which brings healing, changes lives, exorcises death. It says it in verse 36, and those who had seen it told them how the demon-possessed man had been saved. They see and they recognize that a person has been saved. And immediately afterwards, verse 37, then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear. What are they afraid of? That Jesus will save more people? Do they enjoy having demon-possessed people among them? Don't they want those people to be saved? Well, not if it causes the same kind of damage the last healing caused. Better no one else gets saved if that means that we lose our financial security, our jobs, our pigs, our livelihood. Better no one else gets saved if that means we need to change the way we live. That's the person that needs to change. The possessed person, not us. He needs help. Why should we pay for his help? Please, Jesus, leave. We don't need those kinds of healings around here. So Jesus gets into the boat to leave. And the liberated man approaches him and says, take me with you. He understands that Christ is not a threat, but the only hope for true life. But Jesus says to him, no, don't come with me. These people need to know who I am. Go and tell everyone what God has done for you. And you know, this guy could say to Jesus, but Lord, literally everyone just found out. All the citizens of Gerasa just heard about what you did. But Jesus knows that all these people heard about was what they lost, and not what this man had gained because of Christ. Verse 39, and so he went away, proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. Jesus gets in the boat to leave, but he doesn't abandon the people of Gerasenes, even though they asked him to leave. He leaves a new disciple there, a changed person, to proclaim to the people that God saves lives through Jesus Christ. And with this mission that Jesus has given his new disciple, he shows that it's not only the possessed who need healing, it's not only those who obviously require divine intervention. Everyone needs to be healed. He who had tasted death intensely now knows true life, and with the sermon of Jesus Christ on his lips, he proclaims that life to the people consumed by mediocrity. Stay close to those who obviously need Christ, because you too are one of those people. The healing that God brings in someone's life may mean that you will lose something. And when you do lose something because of someone else's healing, know that God's not trying to make a fool of you, but Christ wants to free you from the demons of selfishness and comfortability. Thank God that Christ showed up on our shore.